There are places that have murals now that I remember going to and asking them if I could paint on their walls, and they just laughed.
The great thing about community art is that you don't have to dress up and to go someplace to see it.
I believe that art is for the people.
I always think that art is going to outlive us.
Welcome back to ArtSpark. My name is Yetunde Felix Uku, and I'm the Artistic Associate at KCRep Theater and also the host of ArtSpark. Now, to me, every episode is special, but this episode might be my favorite because it's one part of a multi-episode exploration. Many refer to Kansas City as the city of fountains, but take a quick drive around the city and you'll soon come to realize that Kansas City is the city of murals. On today's exploration, we'll sit down with some of the muralists who are making Kansas City vibrant and gorgeous. There is so much art to explore. Let's hurry up and get started.
Welcome, Jose Faus. We're so happy to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, and thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Well, I'm just going to jump right in and ask how you were introduced to visual art. How did you learn? Were you formally taught, or did you just pick up and start painting?
No, I'm going to say I was introduced to art. My mother was a dancer, so we had art as a consequence. But I just started doodling. I would just make marks on papers, and over the years, I just noticed that I just kept doing that. It wasn't like really I don't think that I was drawing anything. I was just playing with a pen and pencil. And over time, then when I got to college, I had been drawing for a while just for myself. And then I decided, you know what? I was taking political science, and my brother asked me if I wanted to just sit in on a drawing class. After I did, I realized, you know what? I prefer this than what I'm doing. So I switched majors.
I love it. So you switched from political science to visual art?
And writing, yeah. So it was creative writing, journalism, and painting studio.
Wow. So what was it that inspired that switch? Just being in that one class, that's what did it?
Well, I remember it's kind of funny because the teacher that let me in, she there was a nude model when I walked in, and I explained to her. My brother said I could come over, and I don't think she believed me. I think she was thinking that something was going on. So she had me sit right in front of the model so she could keep an eye on me. But I remember after about 20 minutes, she tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're welcome to come and sit on this class. You don't have to take it for credit the rest of the semester." And semester was fairly new, and I remember thinking, you know, this is nice. I hadn't even thought about you could make a living out of art. I didn't even think you could make a living out of art. But I thought it was a really nice affirmation. So I went in, and that weekend I thought about it, and I said, I've always liked to draw and paint and write. And I said, that's really what I want to do. And so I did. I just over the weekend made up my mind, went in on Monday, talked to my counselor, and switched everything over.
I love it. I love the converts into the artistic community. Hi, Alisha. So happy to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's good to be here.
So we've had a chance to talk to Jose, who was fascinating, and I'm so excited to learn that you all have worked together for many years. Talk to me about how you met and what was the first piece of art that you painted together?
Okay. Well, we actually met when I was at the Kansas City Art Institute, I believe my junior year. And at that time, there was a group called the Guild of Latino Fine Arts, and we were both a member. His space was also a gallery space. So we had an exhibit there of quite a few of the Latino artists that are still around today. Then just painting wise, our third partner, he put together a project for us to go to Mexico. And we were able to work on some murals at a secondary school down there. So just getting to see how each other worked. And that just solidified it that when we get back, we're going to keep working together. We created one mural in which we worked with the community of Strawberry Hill. And it was a Croatian and Serbian mural. And unfortunately, it's no longer there. But that was like one of our favorite murals. And then word got out that we wanted to continue to do cultural murals. We really wanted to showcase the people that are KCK. And we were approached by City Vision Ministries, and they raised the funding for us to continue to do various cultures. So there's one that's Mexican, one that's Hmong, one that's African American, and one that's Wyandotte. Just doing all the research for each of those murals was, really a wonderful thing. Getting to know the individual communities. We're really happy with, being able to drive through that area and see that all those murals, still exist. Unfortunately, except for the Croatian one, which was my favorite.
Vania Soto, we are so happy to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm just thrilled to be able to have the opportunity.
Oh, me too. I am going to jump right in. I'm so excited to talk to you, but let's start from the beginning. How did you get into visual art?
I started selling paintings when I was 13 years old. Yeah, I'm originally from East Tennessee, which is a super, super small town in Tennessee. And there was only one Mexican restaurant there. We were the only Mexican family there. And so we would frequent there a lot. But in this restaurant, there were a lot of images of just like Mexicans with a big old sombrero, or like, the typical image of like leaning back with a cactus and like a bottle of tequila.
And the tipped sombrero, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would just see that, and it would just always bother me. I was born in Mexico. I was brought here when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And so I'm like, I don't remember anything of Mexico being like this. The manager, we were really good friends with, he's Chicano, which means like Mexican American. And so I just told him, I'm like, hey, I don't really like your paintings or images on the walls. And he's like, well, what's wrong with them? I'm like, I just don't really agree with the image. I don't want my friends, from school to come here and think that that's how my dad is, or that's how we just walk around with sombreros, like, and I just told him I just don't really like those images. There's so many things you could do. There's Frida Kahlo, there's like so many places in Mexico, and you could just literally Google them, print them, put them up. I don't know,
There's a whole world of our culture out there that you could choose from. Yeah.
Exactly. So he was like, well, what do you suggest I do? I'm like, well, I'm an artist, and it just so happens that I like to draw and paint images that are like Mexican, that, I think would be better representation of like our heritage and stuff. And he was like, okay, I see. He was like, next time you come, bring some paintings, and I'll see if I like them, or if they're like, if we could just replace the paintings that I have. So researching more about Mexican artists and just other influences about our heritage and our history. And I just started my career, basically at that time. And I did 6 paintings, and I asked my dad for a ride to the restaurant. And so he looked at all the paintings, and he was poker faced and just like, I didn't know what he was thinking. And finally he looked at me and he got like really teary eyed, and he was like, this is why I started my Mexican restaurant in a place where there's no Hispanic people. I don't even speak the language anymore. He was like 6th generation, 7th generation Mexican. He was like, this is why I wanted to do it, to keep our tradition like of the Mexican food alive and like share that. So he bought all 6 paintings, And yeah, it was my first business transaction.
At 13, wow.
Yep. And he replaced all of the images that he had, and just kind of just put my images there. And that was so gratifying to me that, number one, somebody believed in me, you know, number two, that I stood up for what I thought was wrong, you know, and replaced it and had a solution for it, you know.
Yes.
I don't think that man knew what he did for me.
Welcome, Hector Casanova. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
What are some of the differences in doing art collaboratively?
Well, I think that, you know, that's, I teach in illustration, and the class that we do these mural projects in, the name of the class is Us Collaboration. And the focus of the class is precisely on how art, and especially illustration, is inherently a collaborative process. You know, conventionally in illustration, we're working with a client, whether it's an art director or an editor, you know, or a buyer, but we're usually working with somebody and who helps to kind of guide the process. And for mural projects, we basically treat the community as a client. So depending on who we're doing the mural for, so we meet with the client and we take their ideas on what kind of imagery they want to see portrayed in the murals, and that's basically how we start the process. So for the Scarrett Elementary School, which has been closed, we met, and for the Pershing School, both of those schools started decommissioned and they've been closed for years. So we met with the neighborhood associations and we have collected input from the residents of the community because they're the ones living with the artwork. So we wanted to ensure that they would embrace the art, that they would feel like the work was representing them, because it's in their backyard after all. So we had meetings with the neighbors and took their ideas. And then for the schools that are active, Whittier and East High School, we met with the students and with the faculty and staff, and then collected their ideas for what kind of imagery they wanted to see.
So I'd love to ask about the influences in your art. So you talked about your mom being a dancer and then having that political science background. What are the things that influence and infuse their way into your art even now?
Well, I think from political science, you know, it's a study about a lot of things. You know, it's like the political structures, then you throw in the economics, but then you also have a cultural history that comes along, right? And I was really intrigued by movements, popular movements, the change in movements, right? And the fact that you have to go look for history. So I was born in South America. I was an immigrant, and we didn't get a lot of that in high school. I mean, once you go to school, you're studying American history, and it's a very narrow sense of history. So I went looking for that history on my own, and then you find the cultural movements, and you find where artists are part of that cultural movement. Kind of like working toward change the systems and stuff like that. And art is a very strong component in other countries, but not here. But also, it was for me, it was like the 60s, the end of the 60s, the tail end in the 70s. So art was very much definitely the music scene, but the art scene too was, I mean, very colorful and everything. So that kind of like, I already had an appeal for that. So I was immersed in that.
And so I'm curious about the cultural influences in your work now. Are there heavy cultural influences even now, or was that just something that got you jump started when you were first?
Oh no, absolutely. I've carried on through all of my work, kind of that inspiration of my culture and my heritage. Even if most of all of my work is oriented around that, but even if it's not the main feature, you can tell because of the bright colors that I use. It's a vibe, that you get, that you can tell that it's my work, because all of my work it's very colorful and inspired by my heritage. I have a lot of followers that are like, immediately I knew that you did that mural. I didn't even have to see the signature.
I was born in Mexico, and I grew up in Mexico City through my mid-teenage years. And when I came to the United States, one of the things that struck me the most about the difference between Mexico and the United States, especially for me as a young high school, college student who was aspiring to become an artist, one of the things that struck me the most is that the perception of what an artist is and what art does, and just the function of art in society, is so different in the United States than it is in Mexico. And I think that part of it is due to just the history and the tradition of what art and what murals have done in Mexican society, going back to the Revolutionary War in 1910. But Mexico had a government-funded mural program through the first half of the 20th century. And in Mexico, murals are everywhere. And especially in the first half of the 20th century, this government-funded mural program basically commissioned artists to develop a new national identity through artwork. And they didn't interfere very much with the murals, with the artists at all. They didn't art direct very much. And this was very much a very conscious kind of a response to all of the just the political turmoil through from the previous 3 centuries from European influence. I grew up with an understanding that an artist is basically a populist. It's basically providing a voice to the people and to the disenfranchised, and it's considered basically like a very practical activist profession. And here in the United States, when I would tell people when I was 16, 17 years old that I wanted to be an artist, the response was so different. Instead of seeing my choice as a valid one, I often was confronted with people questioning, why would I choose art? And people saw it as a frivolous, very superficial profession that was not practical and not sustainable. So I always grew up with that kind of schism in my head, and I did pursue art, and I worked as an illustrator for the Kansas City Star for 15 years.
The first one would definitely be Frida Kahlo. I used to dress up like her a lot for every exhibit, so I was kind of the second Frida Kahlo, but love her work. Also, for my personal work, it would be showcasing the traje, which is the indigenous wear of the native peoples throughout Mexico. So that was something that was very important to me. Also integrating kind of a cross integration between symbolism from different cultures. That was another thing that was important to me. And just learning about people, learning about what their how they feel about their community. What kind of things do they see that are challenges in their communities? What are their memories?
I would love to know how you made the transition. So you're in that class and you're painting a nude model and you start with visual art. How did you know that you wanted to make the transition from an art, from I guess, a small scale visual art to, I want to paint on walls. I want it to be massive. How did you make that transition, and how did you know?
Oh, it was very quickly. I used to, when I was going to university, I used to rent, we all rented, right? And I remember there was some apartments I would rent and they would have these walls and the guys didn't paint them very well. I mean, you just got what you got. But I would start painting on those walls. And I remember one time the owner got really pissed, but I thought, man, I just put a work of art on your wall. But they would cover them up, but it never stopped me. So a lot of the places I lived in, I would paint the walls, and I just thought it was automatic. You just transfer that to the outside. I never took pictures of them. I wish I had, because I know there's a couple I really liked. But yeah.
Jose Faus, I love him so much. He knows that. He knows that. I live in KCK, so I drive around and I see all of his paintings, and they're so inspiring because they tell stories, right? We're storytellers. And I just thought, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how, he's paved the way for someone like me that wants to keep telling a story in a bigger scale where the community can get involved. And, the art is in the eye of the beholder. But in the community, telling a story in that way could trigger something in someone to be more involved or to appreciate where they live or where they shop. There's a story to tell everywhere. The story is on there already. It's just digging through the story and like being able to tell.
I chose illustration because, and in working for a newspaper, because I always wanted to use my skills in a way that I felt was benefiting society. And so I believe in journalism and the role of in journalism in society and the need for an informed population. So I was very happy working in that kind of system. But the other reason why I decided to step away from illustration or move more from illustration to murals was because, well, for one, the newspaper journalism and newspaper industry in general was kind of bottoming out through the 2008, 2010 thereabouts. So the industry was very unstable. And I knew that I was ready for a change, and I was not enjoying the roller coaster of the faltering industry. But then the other part was really just health concerns. After spending 15 years as an illustrator, by necessity, my work was 95% of the time it was digital. So I was always sitting at a computer, and my body, I could just feel my body aging, and I wanted to get as far away from a computer as possible and do work that was physical. And that's what led me to murals. Climbing on a ladder 100 times a day and lugging buckets of paint around is as far away from working with a mouse or a stylus and a tablet as I could get.
Wow, what a story. My question was about the impact of large scale public art. What impact does it have?
I think I've always loved the ideas of murals, and I've also liked the idea of art in the public space, in the common, But for me, one of the things that really crystallized it, when I was much younger, I went to New York and I was visiting some friends my brother had introduced me to. So I was staying with them in Harlem. And I just went to the galleries and everything. And I remember going to, I want to say it was the MoMA. But I remember walking into the place and I wasn't prepared for it. But as I walked into the room, you look straight ahead and there was Picasso's Guernica, which was hanging in the gallery. And I didn't know that. I thought it was in Spain. But actually what Picasso had done, he stated that he never wanted that painting to be shown in Spain until Franco died, till the dictator died. So that's why it was in New York. That's why I was able to see it. But I remember when I saw it, I was used to the reference being like this little on the art history books.
Yeah.
But when you see it, all of a sudden, it's like, it just had this incredible power. And I remember being up against the wall and just kind of sliding down on my haunches and just sitting there looking at it for about 10 minutes. And I always thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could have that same kind of experience in the city, on the street, as you're walking along, all of a sudden you turn the corner and there's something that just gets your attention. You just sit there and say, damn, it's right here and it's free, right? It's unexpected. So I that's the one thing I've liked about murals and that large scale thing, to represent that in a space you're not expecting it.
So what do you hope that your murals specifically do for Kansas City, in such an artistic city? What impact do you hope that your murals have?
Well, I think they've already had the impact they needed to have. When we started doing murals, there were three of us that were painting together. Alisha Gambino and Jesus Ortiz and I, we started kind of a group to paint murals, and we ended up quitting our jobs just to do that. And I can recall that we had a moment, I think, where we were thinking, God, there's not too many people painting murals, and we were getting a lot of resistance to paint murals. But once we started doing them, and they were tied to community, right? So they're telling stories of community. The people would sit back and just kind of like be so thankful that we were celebrating their community, right? And I think we started doing that. But now you look around, there's murals everywhere. There are places that have murals now that I remember going to and asking them if I could paint on their walls, and they just laughed. It's like, no, no way. And we're talking like 25, 30 years ago. But now I drive by there and they have murals. I mean, there's murals in downtown Overland Park, for God's sakes. I remember trying so many times to get a mural out there. Forget it. It was like, are you crazy? So I think they just did that. And the graffiti guys had a lot to do with that too. You know, we have some incredible graffiti in this town, and it's been accepted. It's kind of become a little bit codified, but it's working. So I think the impact we've had, I think it's opened up the city to a lot of stuff. But there were other guys working at the same time we were too, and so all credit to them too.
I love it. I'm speaking to a muralist trailblazer. You've made the way for others to be able to get on those walls.
The great thing about community art is that you don't have to dress up and to go someplace to see it. You don't have to go into a museum. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't feel comfortable going in places like that, or maybe a contemporary gallery or something like that. They can just see it driving by or walking by, and they can experience it for themselves as close or as far away as they'd like to.
I love public art. I mean, and honestly, I mean, this is, I think it's very linked to why I went into illustration rather than specifically focus on a fine art career. I mean, I like art in general, and the distinction between fine art and, you know, popular art or commercial art has always, it always seemed very contrived and very political to me, very artificial. I think that ultimately, again, kind of going back to my roots, you know, growing up in Mexico and the history of murals in Mexico, I believe that art is for the people. I don't think that art should be a commodity. I think that, and that's really kind of where illustration and public art overlap. Illustration, you know, is basically art that that meets people where they live. You know, you don't have to go out of your way. You don't have to go into a gallery or a museum, but just in, you know, going through your life, magazine covers, book covers, posters, you know, T-shirts. You know, that's where most people interact with art, through illustration that is kind of meeting them in their own spheres. And it's the same with public art. You know, it's basically art that is meant to be enjoyed by the people, whether, you know, regardless of their background or education or social status, or, you know, kind of, and unify a community, give a community a sense of place and a sense of identity. That's what I love about these mural projects that I do with my students. I feel that we're helping a community, whether it's a group of students in a high school or you know, residents in a neighborhood that happen to have an abandoned school in one of their streets, but it gives them a sense of pride and sense of place, where what was at one point might have been an eyesore then becomes a visual landmark of something that they can actually really be proud of and like stand in front of and take selfies of.
Yes, yes, selfies.
Well, most of my work is super bright, like I mentioned. There's something about color that triggers us. I feel like we're all energy, right? So those kinds of colors have a vibration that is a little bit higher. So like maybe if you're just stressed or worried or something that's kind of lower vibration mindset, that maybe you would look up and for a second, just kind of smile for a little bit or take a picture, just, you know, take your mind off of it. And I don't know, I feel like art is therapeutic to everybody in different ways. And so I just hope that for a second, you know, it's just a little bit better. It kind of helps everybody out, you know, the community gets to celebrate with you by sharing your work, you know, in that way. And businesses get new people, new followers coming in. And like for schools, I have a mural in KCKCC. I have a mural at the Kansas State School for the Blind. So impacting the smaller community that attend to that class or school, but also kind of celebrating where it's at. For example, at the KCKCC, I did a Wyandotte Nation, celebrating the Wyandotte Nation mural, because obviously a lot of Native Americans lived here before anyone else did. It's native land. And so celebrating them, of course, being Mexican, Native Americans are, the traditions we're all related, right? And so I did one there for the Kansas State School for the Blind. I did it for the preschool area because a lot of the students are not 100% blind, but they're losing their eyesight. So I kind of kept that in mind, and I did really bright colors for them. If it's the last thing they're gonna see, unfortunately, it has to be something happy and like bright and remember the colors, so I kept that in mind. I did a theme of the Wizard of Oz. And so all of the characters are there, with the really bright colors, that kind of vibrating colors. And so just really trying to kind of touch people by using those bright colors and celebrating what used to be there. That kind of carries on in all of the work that I do. Yeah.
So I would love to ask, what's next? What is on, after we're out of this pandemic, or even now, what is next on your plate? What are you working on?
Well, I haven't painted a mural in 3 years, and somebody reached out to me to paint one, and we went through the whole process. I came up with a design and all that. We did it and had it all ready to go. As a matter of fact, I might even have the design around here, but it was all ready. Yeah. Well, this might be the only way it exists, because what happened was
Getting an exclusive.
well, this is what happened. They had it all set, they approved it and all, and then it found out that Kansas City, Kansas has passed some kind of ordinance where there's certain areas they will not allow murals to be in. This was going to be kind of like the little mural.
I love it. Oh, that's so beautiful. Talk about community.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was about.
Oh my goodness.
But this is just a sketch. It would look a lot different by the time it got on the wall. Because when you start to paint, you see other things that you want to change, that you want to see colors highlight something different. So yeah. But yeah, it was a trip because we're all set to go, and then all of a sudden I get a call saying, we just found out the city has zoned this part as a no mural zone.
No mural zone.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that I can see that soon on a huge wall.
I'd love to do it.
That's beautiful.
I am, this last year has been difficult on everybody, obviously. Everybody is stir crazy, and I am I'm very excited to see what it feels like the spring has been kind of taught for so long now that we're going to have a cultural explosion. And I cannot wait. I miss live music. I miss collaborating with other artists, other musicians. I miss kind of having interactive, immersive events with performers, audience, artists, live art. I used to do these things on a regular basis, but now I miss them more than anything else. And I feel like when we finally kind of feel safe to like spring forward, it's going to be a festival of just creativity and exhaling. So I've always felt that, if everybody did whatever they could, just a little bit, to make Kansas City into the kind of city that they want to live in, we would live in an amazing city. So I was doing that. I've been trying to do that all along. And I feel that, obviously many people have been doing that. And this is kind of what has been become this momentum that we've reached as a city, where it used to be I felt like it used to be a medium city with an inferiority complex. But now I feel like Kansas City is coming into its own, and it's proudly Kansas City, and as a city for artists. And I'm thrilled to be part of this, and I cannot wait to collaborate with other people and make things happen.
Yes, can't wait.
Really, now I work a lot with youth and with art, using art not just as a creative tool or as arts for art's sake. It's more using arts as a tool to teach youth about social emotional learning and also violence prevention. So we work a lot with that.
Wow.
And it's good because it still links back to what the cultural aspects that we talked about, community, everything we talk about with the youth totally goes back to the way I did my personal artwork and the way that it translated into the murals.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. I love that connection, and that the power of art is like an umbrella that can include education and include social justice and have all of those arms to be able to reach out. That's so cool. I love that transition.
Oh, thank you.
Yay! Enriching the Kansas City art scene. Thank you so much, Hector.
No, thank you. Thank you.
So happy to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Vania, this has been a most inspiring interview. I can't wait to get into this art prompt. It's been such a joy spending time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story, share what I do, and yeah, give other people the opportunity to maybe get something out of what we've just talked about.
For sure. The folks are inspired. They're ready to go. They want to start painting. They may not be ready for a mural, but they want to start. I would love for you to provide our friends with an art prompt. And this is just a quick exercise for them to spark the art that's going on inside of them. But perhaps they don't know where to start. So where should they start?
You know, the easiest thing you can do, I mean, I do this with kids, and I do this to play sometimes. I have some stuff here. Let me lower the thing. Maybe you can see it right there. Can you still see? Can you see the, okay.
Yes,
So,
I see some paper, yes.
Yeah. So these are just things that I keep. So this was from a project I did a long time ago where we had, we're using birds and stuff, right? So I had all these cutouts of the birds because I was trying to figure out a design. So I have all these cutouts of the birds left over. So I saved them, you know, it's like turkeys, chickens, everything, birds in flight or whatever. So I keep that. That's one thing. And then I also chop up a lot of different color paper and stuff. So I have these pieces, right? I don't throw them away because you never know. And so this is one little packet I had here. I just did a workshop with some kids. And so the idea is take these irregular forms and find ways to connect them together, but leaving the space. Don't seal them together, right? Just like create little things. And then from that, and the thing is cut different shapes. Don't cut like the same one over and over, but find a place that you can get it to go together and just let your intuition take you along, right? And you can create a background with all these things. So here on the slope, I can put like these rounded forms. And the nice thing about it is make them different colors. So a lot of us have construction paper. Just get construction paper and play with that. But you start to create a ground, right? That makes sense. It makes sense to me anyways.
It does.
And then after you filled in that ground, you can come in and you can take that solid figure and putting it around. And you can even build on top of it, right? You can go ahead and put it. All of a sudden you've created a space. And what you can do is you can just trace them even if you want to, and then you just color them in. But this can give you a good sense of like a composition. You don't have to know a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think intuitively we know how to arrange things. When we're kids, I've yet to see a kid that didn't take to a pencil, a crayon or paper and just try to do something with it, a box, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But when we grow out of that, all of a sudden we have to have special instruction. And sometimes it's just play. I can remember when I was in college, seeing a picture of Matisse when he was older, right? He couldn't, and I remember he used to paint with a long stick and he'd hold his hand up because he couldn't get to the thing anymore. And he was infirmed a little bit. So there's a great picture of him sitting in a wheelchair with an Afghan around his legs. And he's just sitting there with these colored paper, just cutting. And then it shows the book, went out to show like different things that he made out of it. And I thought, man, that's like going back to the beginning, the first impulse that you had to create when you're young is this idea you just make stuff, right? Nobody tells you what to do, you just do it. And we see it with kids all the time, but then as we get older, we lose that sense of play, that sense of importance on the little thing. So to me, I've always remembered that. And so I do these little things. I save little packets of cutout stuff, never throw them away, you know? So yeah, and that's inspired directly from Matisse.
I love it.
It's basically play.
I love it. I love that the art prompt is basically go play like you did when you were a small child.
Well, that gets, yeah, exactly. And it's, heck, you don't have to there's no right or wrong, right? There's no right or wrong.
Exactly.
And if you get tired, just sweep it up into the back.
Start again. I can't wait to see the artwork that our friends create after watching this episode. It's going to be
Well, I
so
hope they
exciting.
do.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was so great.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation.
I'm still so fascinated by the magnitude and beauty of the art that we've explored today. And the exciting part is, we haven't even scratched the surface. Remember, there's more Muralists on the way, so stay tuned for future episodes. Until then, there's tons of inspiring content on our website at kcrep.org. Also on our website, more information about today's art prompts. Be sure to send me your artwork at artspark@kcrep.org. I am so excited to see your work and hopefully share it on the next episode. Until the next time, my friends, stay creative.
Now it's of course known as the City of Fountains, but really the City of Murals.
Just make stuff, right? Nobody tells you what to do, just do it.
Having the kind of attitude that you believe in yourself so much that why shouldn't others? You know, it kind of starts with you.
You see a whole community that really takes ownership of that mural. You see the changes in the community around you.
We're gonna have a cultural explosion, and I cannot wait. I miss live music. I miss collaborating with other artists, other musicians.
I love hearing it that way, that the duality of cultures is a superpower.